And hello and welcome everybody. We are live. And first thing live, I have to say, apparently we're currently having an issue streaming to our Los Angeles Tribune Facebook page. That'll happen in a minute. Welcome to the Dr. Natalie Show. And yes, it'll be a weekly show, except for times when I can't be on weekly. What I want to talk about in this weekly show is very simple. I want to bring you guests that have something to say. And by that, I mean people who have lived, who have a life, who have experience, who are ready to share their true stories with you. That's important because very often we think that people are coming out overnight, that they're overnight successes and all of that good stuff. And that is not really what happens. Since that is not really what happens, let's be real. One of my focuses as an intuitive transformational mentor, of course, is to talk about you. You matter, you're unique, you're important. And that goes for all of my guests who share similar ideas. They will come from different areas of life. And the first person that I'm so honored to have with me is a gentleman I met in what is used to be called the One Percenters Club. Thank you, Jay Nolan, and thank you, Mo Rock, for opening that on Clubhouse and inviting lots of people to it. I met this gentleman who I must admit I had not fully had on my radar until then. And I feel so bad that I didn't. He has brought a wealth of experience. And I'm just going to hold this up real quick. And I don't know if you can see it, probably not because I have a green screen on. But that is his latest book. He has a website. He has a daily blog. He has a daily clubhouse. He has the attitude activator, the mindset. He has seminars and work. He has worked for years. And what makes him especially interesting to me is what I consider to be his eclectic background. So I'm going to bring on the one and only Mr. Rex Sykes. Good morning. How are you today?
Oh, I am so well. And Dr. Natalie, I'm so happy to be here and I'm so honored. As you can see, I'm outdoors and you might hear some birds chirping or we could get a plane or something, but I'm happy to be with you and I'm thrilled. Thank you.
Wonderful. And you and I, we've had the chance now to interact in a number of ways. One of the things that strikes me is how positive you are. And what I mean by that is not just with your girls and now the birds in the background, but it really is because life has not been a positive bowl of chocolates for you all the time. Would you care to just share a little bit of your experiences with us so people can, those who haven't heard the story, can get a little bit of an idea of overnight success is not what we're talking about here?
Wow. Well, sure. I'd be happy to share a little bit. But let me first say this. There's, positive thinking and negative thinking. And if you're not positive, what's the alternative? And so that's how I live my life. I wasn't always that way. I grew up in a upper middle class home of doctors, and they put me in acting classes and in dance and acrobatic classes when I was 3 and 4 years old. And I grew up as an entertainer, child entertainer, doing magic and mind reading shows around the United States and then eventually around the world. But as a 6 or 7 year old, I got interested in being a mystic. I wanted to be a priest because I was raised Catholic and I didn't really know anything. So I would ask my mom to read me different books, Eastern religion books, Western philosophy books, and Napoleon Hill and everything, and got involved in hypnosis at a young age, and became a meditator eventually. The thing that I discovered somewhat inadvertently was that it's one thing to read, it's one thing to know, but if you don't apply what you read and what you really don't know it, and it doesn't really, kick in and help you when you need it. So through a series of events, I've had in my life many what people would some call challenges or disasters. I've been at gunpoint over half a dozen times. I've been beat up, robbed, abused. I injured my back in a skydiving accident, which I write about in the book, Life on Your Terms, and was misprescribed a fatal combination of pills by a doctor well-intentioned, I suppose, but it should have killed me. It didn't. It gave me amnesia for a long period of time. And during the time I was taking the pills and not realizing what was going on, I lost all my friends. I destroyed a movie career. A girl that I had hoped to marry broke up with me, and her family's like, "Get away from him. He's going crazy. There's something wrong with him." And I didn't know what was going on with me. And eventually, I went cold turkey with the drugs. My parents found me nearly comatose because my sister called, said something's really wrong with my brother. You need to get out here. And they came and they found the pill bottles, they found alcohol bottles, they found marijuana, and every kind of drug under the world, because people were giving me all sorts of pills saying that you need this to calm down. You need a Quaalude, you need Darvon, you need this, you need that, Valium, here, take these. So I had become this walking pharmacy, and ultimately nearly was comatose. When they found it, they took everything away, locked me in my apartment, took the distributor cap off my car so I couldn't escape. And so after I went cold turkey, I felt so horrible. They were trying to figure out whether they should institutionalize me, what should be done. I didn't have really any memory for anything, and I just kept wanting to get back with my girlfriend and my friends, and nobody wanted anything to do with me, and I didn't know why. So I ultimately jumped out of a 2-story window on my head, and it was grass. I mean, I didn't land on cement, or I probably wouldn't be here. But I jumped out of this window because I was just like, screw this. I don't even know what to do anymore. And I wanted to kill myself. And I went careening through this tree and landed on my head and fell over and realized I didn't even succeed at killing myself. I mean, that's how screwed up things were. So I ran around to try and do it again, and I'd locked myself out of the apartment and couldn't get in to do it again, which was a good thing, And then again, the conversations turned to, what do we do with him? He's obviously prone to self-violent acts. I mean, to make a long story short, I ultimately, after a while of then feeling so bad that I had done what I did, I started to drink very heavily to try and forget what I had done, thinking that would help me. And so for months on end, I would drink, and I would go to clubs. I would get in situations. I'd pass out in parks and nearly put my car over a cliff. I mean, did everything that could go wrong at this time. And a friend of mine one day, after an encounter I had with someone, said, you're going to die. You're just going to die. Is that what you want? And I thought, I really don't. I don't want to die, but I don't know what to do. So I went home and I locked myself in my apartment. And I said, I'm not going to leave here until I can figure out how to face the world, how to win my friends back, get my girlfriend back, get the career that I want. And I'm going to sit in a chair, and I'm going to, and I started reading, again, Napoleon Hill and books on visualization. So I started to visualize and use my imagination and affirm all the things I could have been doing all of my preceding years, but hadn't been routinely. I dabbled, but didn't actually make it a habit. And but during that time, I spent at least 6 weeks in this chair, got up to pee and eat, but I stayed in my apartment, and I realized at some point that I was like, why did this happen to me, and how come everything's so screwed up, and why won't she see me? And I realized I was just asking the wrong kind of questions. I didn't want to know why she wouldn't see me. I wanted to know how I could see her and win her back. I wanted to know how I could get my friends back, how I could travel into the world. How soon would it be, as opposed to how long would it take before I began to claim my life back? And I actually latched onto something that was very profound. And what it did was it started to shift the way I thought, the way I felt. And eventually I came out of my apartment, kind of like a toddler learning to walk, or a baby learning to crawl. But I came out of the apartment very tenuously and made my way into the world. And the more I made my way into the world, as long as I was doing my ritual, my practice that I had learned in the chair, things started to work better. Nothing resolved. I mean, it wasn't like suddenly I got my career. The girlfriend and I never got back together. I've gone on in my life. I've lost money. I've again been held up. I've been attacked. I've lost tons of stuff. I mean, I've had numerous crises in my life since. But what I learned was that attitude gets you through it. The way you think about it and the way you approach life. And I look at it this way: none of it's happened to me. It all happens for me. And with that, but it happens for me so that I could wake up to who I actually am, and to what the world is all about, and why we're here. And to that degree, that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm positive, because the alternative sucks. I mean, when you think about it.
I love that. And I love hearing the story because even though I've heard you talk about it before, there are so many important nuggets. And the first thing that jumped out at me today, and that's because of where my focus is obviously, is when you said, somebody asks you, do you really want to do this? And it goes to the question, do we ever know what we really want? Because that's such a big question when we talk about mindset. So how did you figure out, actually, I don't really want to kill myself. I don't really want to be locked up in my house. How did you figure out what you really wanted at that point in your life? Because I know we want different things at different stages.
Well, to some extent, I would say it was the way the guy asked the question. I mean, he said, you drove your car off of a cliff, and you didn't, you almost died. You're passing out in different parks and different places. You've been a drunk and a drug addict now for X amount of time. You nearly got killed by this mafia guy who's going to come looking for you. Do you really want to die? I mean, he didn't say, do you really want to die? He said,
Right.
you're going to die. Is that what you want? And I thought about it, and I thought, I'm not doing any of this to try and die.
Right.
I've been trying to do it to live. I wanted my girlfriend back. I just didn't know what had happened to me at first with the drugs. Then I self-medicated because I felt so horrible. So, I mean, I'm responsible ultimately. And that's the way I look at it. In other words, I could blame I could blame everybody, but
right.
Let's pretend I created the entire mess so that Rex could wake up to who Rex is. So instead of blaming the world or circumstances or blaming police or blaming the people who gave me the drugs or whatever, Rex takes accountability for that, because what Rex was trying to do was to live and didn't know how. Rex was trying to succeed and just kept screwing it up by doing all the things that didn't contribute to succeeding. But had I not gone through those things, quite frankly, I mean, I can look back now and connect the dots. Had I not gone through them, I wouldn't be here today talking to you.
Right.
I mean, so even though it was hard at the time, it was. I'm reluctant to use the words preordained, but let's pretend that it's all preordained.
Oh, since you say, oh, no, I'm not going to go there just yet. But I love what you're saying, because I'm a big believer in everything, not just a believer, but I think it's a fact for me at this point, that whatever happens is a lesson that we're here to learn. And we're not always going to get taught that lesson in a way that we want, right? I mean, maybe we want to learn about love and we picture love as lovey-dovey, but sometimes we may be shown love, especially self-love, in ways that we didn't anticipate. So when you just said you didn't really know how to live, but that all of that showed you how to live. So would you say that led you really back to understanding who you are as a person and why you're here, like purpose sort of idea?
Oh God, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can use all the analogies. You can say steel is forged in heat. Diamonds are made under pressure.
Right.
The kite rises highest against the wind. Without opposition, resistance, without troubles, we really don't have the wherewithal to know. Without night, we don't know there's day. I mean, some of these analogies become trite. And people go, "Oh yeah, of course," but
Right.
I still don't have money in my bank account, or I'm still not happy. But you could, and you will, if you learn how to do certain things, And for me, the thing was learning that mindset really was everything. It was what we thought about the world. I don't care. I'm going to just put this out there now. I don't care what anyone personally believes. If they want to believe in a God that is sitting in a chair that is removed, or a God that's sitting in a chair that is directly involved with your life, or they believe in a universe that is cold and uncaring, or one that has some kind of intelligence. I'm not here to tell people how to believe. What I am here to say is, whatever you believe, depending on whether it serves you or it doesn't serve you, it either helps you to grow and evolve and move forward, or somehow it keeps you stuck and limited and not growing. A plant is either growing or it isn't growing. It's either you're growing or dying. And I chose at some point to live. And in order to live the way I wanted to live, I had to refashion myself. I had to recondition myself. I had to stop doing what I was doing that created the pain and the suffering and the circumstances that led to me having breakthroughs, because I think it's a breakthrough, not a breakdown, but it's really a breakthrough. And I would venture this. I would offer this. Whatever a person faces most in their life that they think is the problem that they really don't want to have, that's the opportunity that will wake them up. If there's a God who is smart and involved, then he or she or it is giving us exactly what we need and putting it where we would never look unless we develop somehow the courage or wherewithal to realize that this fear that I have, this anxiety that I have, this depression that I have, this loathing that I have, that whatever it might be, this remorse and regret that I have, are all the things that are there to help me become authentic, to become real, to drop, to release, and to live life fully and abundantly. So if somebody goes, I have no money and I'm living hand to fist every single day, solve that and the world becomes completely different. I'm not saying that just having money is going to make it different. I'm saying when you solve the issue inside yourself, not the outer issue, but solve the issue inside yourself, everything transforms. Then the outer world can transform too. But most people, including myself at one time, live letting circumstances dictate us when we should dictate circumstances.
All right. So, mindset.
Yes, sir. Yes,
and you can call me sir. That's okay. I'm German. I can deal with it.
The fatherland. Yes, but I didn't mean.
It's all good. It's funny because I have conversations sometimes about the idea that we can achieve anything we put our mind to. Right. Just like you, because we're talking about it's the mindset. And of course, you talk about the attitude activator. In your book, you talk about how important it is to visualize, to feel, and then put your will behind something. We do know that at the same time that works 2,000, 3,000%. There can be sometimes certain limitations. And so I'm going to throw an example out of you that I hear probably once a week. And that example is, if I'm a quadriplegic, I will never be a basketball player.
And?
That's what I say. But what would you say to that? It's like, okay, so you can be a basketball player. You might not be standing up being a basketball player, but even that has happened. So what do you tell people who are stuck in that kind of thought, right? Well, I can come up with lots of limitations. How do you help them?
Well, to the extent that it's not hypothetical. I mean, if a quadriplegic is saying that to me, versus somebody who says, well, if I were one, then what? Because there's two different realities going on there for people. The hypothetical is, okay, but the person who's lying there is a quadriplegic. Well, let's look at somebody who's a quadriplegic. Let's look at Christopher Reeve.
Yes.
Who had everything going for him, was a superstar actor, horseman, everything else.
Yes.
Sadly, quadriplegic as a result of a horse riding accident. He's now unable to move or do anything. Does he now whine the rest of his life unable to move and complain and feel horrible while trapped in a body that he can't escape from? Or does he go, you know what, maybe I need to learn to think differently so that I make the best of this circumstance? And how can I use it? Now, to that example, my guest, Michael Workington, who you know, and Maggie Avila, who did the movie Altitude, Not Attitude, was a 22-year-old surfer who was quadriplegic in a 3-story fall when he was 22 years old. He's now in his 40s. In talking with him, he said, I had a decision to make. Do I live, angry, or do I realize that life should be about fun? And I chose that it's about fun. And he, as a quadriplegic in a wheelchair, he now has some movement of his arms, but not his hands the way you and I have. But he has some movement. He can get around in a special wheelchair. He's a financial advisor. He's an entrepreneur. He's made himself wealthy, and he travels the world doing good for other people. So if he can do that, what could you do who's not a quadriplegic?
Right.
And you can't answer it until you actually are there, because it is a hypothetical. Paul Flynn, another guy who Parkinson's at 39,
Oh, yes, yes.
decided he wasn't gonna let Parkinson's stop him. He decided to run marathons and do rowing and do push-up challenges. His goal now is to climb Mount Everest next year. So he's climbing mountains this year, 3 mountains this year, in order to raise money for Parkinson's disease and
Right.
and awareness. The stories are countless of people who have overcome the most egregious of circumstances, because they have learned that within them they have Viktor Frankl. They have within them the ability to transform their mindset and their feelings and their attitude and their behaviors. And even if they can't move their body the way most other people can, because there are people in all sorts of different forms of neurological or physical impairment, or whatever, and yet they don't let it stop you. So if and that's what I really discovered, because I would whine and complain about didn't get a part in a movie, I didn't get a girlfriend, something went wrong, and it was like life was over, and I sucked and the world sucked, and damn them and damn this, and everything's screwed, and until I went, you know what, it's all good, it's all good, and I got to tell you, had I got my girlfriend back, I wouldn't have the children I have now, and I'm so blessed by the children I have. And I'm sure, yes, maybe we would have had other kids, and I'd be just saying the same kind of thing. I'm so glad I got her back, because look at the kids I have. But it didn't work out the way it worked out, and I am really glad with who showed up, who was gifted in my life. And I can look back and go, because of that, and then because of this other event that I was in a car accident, and in one car accident, hit ice, went into a wall, went through the windshield, nearly died, nearly froze to death, was beat up, and it's just everything happened that night. A horrible night. Hospitalized for a long time, legal things for a long time, which were all eventually resolved in my favor, but not at first.
Right.
And this horrible thing. But had it not been for that event, I wouldn't have met the person who I had children with, because I was now in a different city and different place when this all happened, and in order to go through. So I look at it like, you know what? I don't care whether it's true or not.
Right.
It was destined to be. So I'm going to accept it and go with it. It's destined to be. And so if I have a problem tomorrow, it was destined for me to have it so I could solve it, so I could figure it out and go forward. So that's how I think of things.
It's funny that you say it's destined to be, and that you say whether it's true or not. It's true for you. So who cares? Right?
Well,
it's the way that I look at the world, right? Yeah. I mean, even as a historian, I learned that there are different ways of looking at things. Right. So there's not necessarily that one truth. But when you just said destined, I know that one of the people that you helped, at least one of the people that you helped with the amazing work that you do, I believe they called you a prophet. So it's really interesting. And I do want to bring up your book real quick, Life on Your Terms, because it is what you're talking about. I mean, I have it right here. It is what we're talking about. It is about the ways of understanding how you learn things, how you do things, paying attention to your mind. And this morning, I'm assuming it was this morning, your blog, because on the gratitudeactivator.com, you have a number of blogs. And this morning's blog is about, I'm going to read the first sentence, stop being Pablo's dog. Reactions are knee-jerk and come from your previous haphazard, less than glorious, negative conditioning while growing up. All right. So how do we stop being Pablo's dog? It's one of my favorite things because, patterns. But what is your advice? How do we get out of that autopilot or Pablo's dog situation to create the life that we want?
Well, that's a deep dive, and we may not have all the time in the world for it. But I can literally tell people how they can begin and how to start. And I encourage them to read the book, and there are other things. So let me start it with this way. I have my pet saying of mine that I've said for 40 years now is, exploration is the doorway to adventure, and awareness is the key to change. Because if you're willing to explore, then adventure opens up for you. And adventure means highs and lows, like a roller coaster, like going into the Amazon. Some of it's going to be fun. Some of it's going to have mosquitoes and snakes and not so good things. I spent, a month or more in the Amazon, in the jungles of Panama, and it can be very fascinating. Let's put it that
Right.
way. So the awareness is the key. So if you don't know something, you don't like if you don't know that you have $1 in your pocket, you don't know you could spend it. You don't know, if you don't know that you got something on your face and you're talking to somebody and somebody says, something on your face, well, now you can change it. So awareness means you can adjust for what's going on. So if you're doing something that isn't working, that's causing you pain and suffering, mental, physical, emotional anguish, then to become aware of it doesn't just mean noticing that I'm suffering. It means noticing that you have, which you could. You can say, you know what, that was really hard. I always encourage people when they become aware to pat themselves on the back. Go, good job. I noticed that I'm having a problem right here. Great. I have a problem. Now, Einstein said that the problem and the solution can't exist at the same level, that the solution comes from elsewhere. So first thing is to appreciate the awareness. Why do you do that? Because if you appreciate your awarenesses, you'll become aware more often. If
Right.
that sucks or that's true or that's bad and you criticize yourself, you're not nurturing yourself along. What you're doing is you're going, I don't want this. I don't want this. This is horrible, or I'm a failure. If you do those things, then you get more of that, but you don't get to move forward. So you want to acknowledge the awareness, and then when you have an awareness, you have a choice. So if you now know something's on your face, you can go, well, I choose to leave it there, or I choose to remove it. Now you have a choice. So pat yourself on the back for recognizing you have a choice. Then make the choice. And whichever you choose, pat yourself for making the choice, because now you actually made a choice instead of it's not making a choice is actually a choice, but it's very passive. And most people live passively aggressive with themselves. They don't make choices, and then they get mad at the world, or they get mad at themselves, or they get mad at their dog or their kids or whatever, instead of going, you know what, I could have done differently.
Right.
Now, so if you make a choice in the way that moves you forward, and who knows what that's going to be, because even if you make a choice against it, you can't make a wrong choice. Let me put it that way. You can think you did. Well, I could have invested in that, but I invested in this. I lost all my money. Yes, that does appear to be a wrong choice for what you wanted to do. But there are so many people who've done that and then gone on to be extremely wealthy because they learned something else in that experience. So I believe everything ultimately happens for your good. I'm not saying anybody else has to believe that, but everything ultimately happens for you. Like you said, you learn. I'll use the example of the Wright brothers, which I talk about a lot. The Wright brothers, we're responsible now. They're at the outer edges of the solar system because the Wright brothers decided that they were going to work on building a heavier than air aircraft, a human-driven machine, as opposed to balloons.
Right.
And they worked at it. Their own family thought they were nuts, told them to give it up. Their neighbors, everybody thought they were crackpots. Even the press didn't really cover it because they didn't think it would ever happen. But they failed consistently because they didn't know how to fly until they flew. Then once they flew, they could go, oh, it worked, and reverse engineer it. All the while they were attempting to fly, they were experimenting. They were trying this and trying that, and they didn't get the results they want. So what we do in life is we think we should know how to do it before we do it. And that's not how life works. We want that. I mean, that's why we read books and go to seminars and do, other stuff, because we're trying to get the information to move us in a certain way. But really, life is experiential. So even if you read the books, if you don't apply it, you never, like I didn't, you're never going to learn to do anything differently. You're going to only continue to perpetuate what you've already done. So the Wright brothers experimented, and then once they flew, they knew how to fly. Then they could improve on it. And this is how it works for us. We discover it through trial and error. We discover it through adversity and challenge and problems. They're not there to screw us up or to break us down. They're there to help us have a breakthrough. And yet most people, because of our conditioning, don't want problems.
Right.
They don't want to have difficulty. They want it to be smooth and easy and all that stuff. Well, it gets smooth and easy when you realize that the gift of having a problem is another problem.
So I want to interrupt you here just for a minute, because being from a different country and having grown up the way that I have grown up, what you're sort of talking about reminds me of the idea of critical feedback. you know, critical feedback, which is critique, versus criticism just to hurt you. And I have found, and maybe this is me being biased, you can tell me, I have found that in the US, positive critique is less acceptable unless it's sandwiched. It's like, you did this really well. Well, this sucked, and this was really well, so that nobody hears what sucked in the middle. But in Europe, I have seen more of that. I'm telling you this because I love you. I'm telling you you've got ketchup on your chin because I don't want you to not get the job offer. So I don't know what your thoughts on that are. Is that a cultural difference, not just Europe versus US, but even within the US, there are hundreds and thousands of subcultures. Have you found that too, that there's a different understanding of critique and criticism?
Well, yes, but I don't know that I would have thought of it in terms of culture. But
Okay.
yes, I mean, I can appreciate and understand that, and I mean, I have to go in thinking about it. I think you're spot on with that.
Mhm.
If because I have said to people oftentimes, I said, if everybody knew something about you but you didn't know it, would you want to be told what that was? I mean, if it were keeping you from your dreams or from and people will go, yeah, like they're afraid that something's about, you know. People in our culture here in the United States, I'm somewhat convinced that whoever the powers that be are globally, have set it up, whether they're still in motion this way or not, whether the current people like running the show, or whether it's just something that has become a fixture of our mindset and then not people, is that if we focus on our problems and we focus on what divides us, we will never get together enough to do anything powerfully, because we'll always be divided. So a house divided, I mean, we've heard this thing, will always fall, whereas a house united can actually accomplish something. So our media, Edwin Bernays created the field of public relations, and originally it was called propaganda, using the tools, the principles of Freud, which did not please Freud to any end. That's for sure. He was unhappy with his nephew. But they decided to make the United States, which is sadly in some ways and beautifully in other ways, or wonderfully in other ways, reached around the world and contaminated both positively and not so positively other cultures with the Western idea. Was to take us from being a need-based culture and make us a desire-based culture. So if you had a tractor and you didn't need another one, you didn't get one until you needed it. And what Bernays did was use psychological techniques and principles of Freud to say, no, you really want another tractor. And if you have another tractor, then you're better than the guy who only has one tractor, or the girl that only has one of these. So we changed everything. And so now you're no good if you have flaky hair or smelly pits, or yellow teeth, or not wearing the right brand design. I mean, there's so many things that people are conditioned without thinking. It's on our billboards, it's in our media, it's social media, it's on TV commercials. Constantly, we're told that we're not good enough and we're broken. And so, giving feedback, is typically, I think of it as an act of love. And I would always say there's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. When you're trying something. So if somebody's willing to offer you some feedback, I don't think critique you in a negative, way, but offer, say, could you use some help with that?
Right.
You would think we would embrace it, but usually we take it to mean that there's something wrong with us, that somehow we're not good enough, or that somehow this person is intentionally trying to harm us. And that's just because we're so used to it. It's a habit. It's the way we just live. And that may be very cultural, like you were saying, the difference between, Europe and the United States. We think we're the best country in the world, and then we find out we aren't, and then we still defend it, or we have problems, but instead of saying, how do we work together for our problems, then we just criticize.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
That's as political as I'll get, hopefully.
Oh, that's no. I think especially in a global environment right now. We need to just at times open up our minds a little bit more and understand where people are coming from without prejudice. Like you said, if somebody tells me something, gives me feedback, the energy that they bring it with, I'm very aware of whether that is loving feedback or I'm going to stab you in the back feedback.
Well, and I think it also has to do with parenting, because,
Yes.
parents can go, you're never going to amount to anything because you're stupid. Or they can go, if you really want to amount to something, then you're a great learner and you could learn to do this. So mistakes are part of it. There's just, a way in which we approach people and the way in which we raise our children and the messages. So you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
I would like to add this
Yes.
to the conversation, and it may or may not fit at this point, but I wrote Life on Your Terms with that title in mind because I want people to live life on their terms
Hmm.
and dictate the circumstances whereby they live by being personally empowered to live as
Yes.
positively and powerfully, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, in whatever regard that they want. That instead of being a victim of circumstances, and living haphazardly, that they live with purpose and intent, and that they
Hmm.
experience all the most. Hi, Brigitte. I know Brigitte. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Nice to see you, Brigitte. Um, a sister from your country.
Hmm. Yeah.
So they're very cool. That's awesome. I haven't seen her, spoken to her in a long time. Uh, but that being the purpose is to live with intention and to know that we're creators and that we can create the kind of lifestyle that we want if we learn just a few simple principles and practices and
Hmm.
then put them into action. You can't do it by knowing about it. You can only do it by actually doing it. Experience is the teacher, and that's where like the Wright brothers. They could have known all about flying and read all the books and not ever flown a plane, but they had to have the experience. This is why a very important thing. A master at something, whether it's martial arts or in investing or farming or juggling, whatever it is, has failed more often and faster and harder than any student ever will in order to master what they've done. And in my life, I've had massive amounts of failure. Massive. I mean, emotional, physical, financial. Everything. And it's all contributed to me being who I am today, and
Hmm.
it's all part of it. So I love it.
Awesome. I want to talk about failures and mastery in just a moment.
Sure.
But before we go there, I do want us to take about a 1 minute break because we are coming to you from the Los Angeles Tribune. And here's just a brief view of what we do at the LA Tribune.
Hello and welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune. Since 1886, our name has been a part of the world of journalism. We've earned a reputation for being a publication that practices integrity, authenticity, and responsibility. For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
And while we're talking about the Los Angeles Tribune and while we're back with the amazing Rex Sikes, I do want to point out that Rex also has a show on our network. It's called All Things with Rex, and his show is Thursdays. So you're going to get to back here. All right, Rex. I know I want to talk about mastery. I want to talk about failure because I have a very specific view on that. Before I go there, I want to throw you sort of like I think I would call it a curveball. I found this picture of you. I hope you've seen that one. It's probably been a while, but it came to my mind when I was reading about you as a possible prophet. Earlier, you said a mystic. So you've had a life either before or while exploring mysticism, which was acting. And to me, acting involves a lot of challenges and failures because of all of the rejections. But it's also a great way of exploring lots of different roles, and maybe that's what broadens one's mind. So connecting the acting, because you have your own profile on IMDb, you have lots of connections, you've done lots of movies. How did you get from being an actor to being the mystic and the prophet of today? Because I think it has to do with mastery and failures.
Well, that's a wonderful question, but also a wonderful summary, and they all intersect. I'm blessed, and I actually am an Anglican bishop, so that's what that's from. It's not. No, I'm kidding. That was a movie I did, and but funny enough, I'm playing a priest in a movie, and here as a kid I wanted to be a priest. I'm glad that I'm not, quite frankly, but at 6, 7 years old, I thought that was the thing to do. And oddly enough, I feel like I've come full circle, and that movie was actually called Full Circle. So it's an interesting thing. But yeah, I was put into acting classes. I studied acting. All the while, I maintained, my interest in meditation and hypnosis. I was doing hypnosis from the time I was 11, reading these books and having a fascination. But at the time, mostly I was trying to magic my way into the world and magic my way into a career and have some kind of magic wand or superpower that I could go and everything would work out. And then people would hire me and I'd be great. And the girls would flock to me and, this, that, and the other. And then obviously I had crises, that came about and realized, okay, I need to do something in order to make it work, not just, dabble in this stuff. You can stand on the side of a pool and dip your toe in, or you can dive in. So I really went for the deep dive after that. I mean, I lived in an ashram on and off for 4 or 5 years. I visited other ashrams. I spent lots of times with different Eastern and Western mystics. I did everything I could. I meditated for hours endlessly, every day, and sometimes to the detriment of my film career, because I would be gone and then people couldn't reach me, and they go, "Well, we tried to reach you for this," and I'm like, "Well, I'm doing this other thing." So I've tried to compartmentalize my life to say there's this aspect of me and that aspect of me, and the twain not necessarily meet. So I'd be doing workshops, around the world, or people would fly in. For over a decade, I did workshops out of a 100-acre retreat. People fly in from all around the world. I say, acting or hypnosis or these other things, and I kind of kept it from them and just dealt with why they came to the program. I mean, I didn't cross it. But having said that, all of the acting and all of the experiences I went through as an actor, good and bad, all the rejection, I went to workshops that were kind of nice, where you learn things and it was pleasant. I went to ones that were horribly abusive, would be the word. But at the time, that's how we learned to act. I mean, we thought that the process was, and I even said to an acting coach of mine, I said, "Tear me a new one, break me down. I just want to be a puddle on the floor. Do whatever you can so that I get over any of my inhibitions, so that I can be authentic." And he was more than willing. And and I've done a number of those, and I've done lots of cathartic stuff and lots of pounding on pillows and screaming and dancing naked in dark rooms, and the whole thing, in order to try and get over all sorts of stuff. And I realized you can do that, but you don't have to do that. And so that's how I talk about it now. But my point is I live this bizarre life of just trying everything, and I'm so blessed to have done that. And I'm still in some ways doing it. But I mean, it was the life of a seeker. I wanted to accept who I was, and I wasn't accepting me. And I always felt that something was lacking, and something was missing, and I didn't feel connected. And so I was, and then I'd have another major crisis, and then I'd have another, years apart, but I'd have these like landmark crises where I was like, okay, finally, I get it. I need to not dabble. I just need to allow. I need to release. I need to let go, and I need to actually apply what I do know, and then everything transformed. So it was putting into daily practice into what I did. And it's the notion that we have habits, and the reason why we have habits is because we were conditioned to have habits, or we developed habits, or we decided we were going to develop a habit.
Right. Yeah.
And so I just developed other habits, and one of those was to be able to think positively and feel positively, and to let go of problems, and to approach the world the way I approach the world. I've had breakthroughs, in meditation and things. I'm very careful about how I describe stuff, but I'm just here to tell people, it's really about transmission, not knowledge. I'd rather sit and meditate with people than talk to people, because there's something that happens between people, when we're together, and that happens, like Shakti put, but most people aren't, I didn't say most people aren't, but a lot of people don't go there. So they're reading book after book after book. So I wrote a book that said, here, you can read this book. I put out the Attitude Activity. Said, well, you'll never need another audio program after this one if you just use it.
Right.
Just use it and do it, and you'll find out why you don't need another audio program. And I do workshops and seminars for that reason, because people can come in, and it's about learning how to transform themselves, and then going back into their lives and transforming their lives. So it's all very good. I don't know that I answered your question.
No, you did. Absolutely. Thank you, David. And I've got like 2 follow-up questions, and I just put your Rex Sikes website up as well, because you don't just do what you just talked about. It's not just the Attitude Activator. It is the workshops. It is your Clubhouse thing, and I believe on your website you also get a free audio download. Which hold on, I'm going there. Your biggest problem and what to do about it. I love that title. We don't have to jump on there right now because I have an idea what it is. But I do want to go back to something that Michelle asked earlier. And the reason why I want to go back there is because we talked about constructive criticism, and she's asking, how do you handle feedback given that everybody has a different perspective and reality? And before I'm going to ask you to answer that, I do want to refer back to your book, because in chapter 13, the title of that chapter is Beliefs Determine Reality. So in other words, your perspective on how you see the world determines what is true for you. And to me, that means feedback, you handle it depending on what is true for you. How would you respond to Michelle? And I'm going to put up the whole question here. How do you handle feedback when everyone has a different perspective or reality? What would you say to that, Rex? I know what I would say. That's a different story.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
In other words, you're getting multiple perspectives from multiple people, and they may not all be in agreement, or they could, but thank you. Somebody's caring enough or a bastard enough to give you some kind of comment because they're paying attention to you. So thank them, and then evaluate it, but don't be gullible and just accept it or go, and now I have 50 different things and I don't know what to do, because not everybody, will, some people do it for different reasons. Right. I would just say thank you, and consider that maybe what they're saying, whether it's well-intentioned or otherwise, may have some value for you, that it could be something that, whether it's true or not, meaning accurate or not, has something that will direct your attention to some aspect of you that you could improve or validate or enjoy or release and let go, without it becoming a contest of wills, or that person thinks badly of me, or now I have to feel bad because somebody gave me feedback. I just say thank you. The universe is pointing at something, and it points in many different ways, and enjoy it. Be thankful that there's another human willing to actually converse with you, as opposed to, how dare you say that to Thank you. You don't, and to say thank you doesn't mean you have to do anything about it either. Right. That's your choice. If it fits, great. If it doesn't fit, okay. And what doesn't fit today may fit tomorrow. I don't fit into my high school clothes, but I could.
I couldn't.
Well, maybe, but I'm saying, with a little effort, maybe.
With a lot of effort. Yeah. But I think this is also key. And I want to twist that or edit that question, that answer just a little bit, because that's when we receive it, right? When somebody comments on us. When we give feedback, I think it's also crucial, and it might be harder when we're teachers because we know we're like, no, you need to do this. But on the other hand, the recipient still has a choice. We can't force feed them. The horse is going to drink or not, but it's still the horse's choice.
Right.
No pun intended. I'm not talking about horses necessarily, but it's like I can give you advice. But as a mentor and as a teacher, we also need to be able to say, this is my advice. If I even give you advice and don't just lead you down the road, it's still your choice to take it, right? To me, that's always been the hardest lesson, when I know something and I'm just like, okay, but it's your choice. I'm just going to walk away now. Can be very hard. The first thing you said in response to Michelle was thank you. And you're big on gratitude. Not just with the gratitude activator blog that you have, but also, of course, with the daily gratitude activator on Clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Every morning, it's 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. What time is it Pacific?
7 a.m.
7. That's early. Why do you feel gratitude is so important for everything in life? I mean, it's a constant when I look at your work. Why do you think that's so important?
Because it is.
Okay. Next chapter.
Where I came into my power was when I was like 25 and I did this meditation and I just started thanking myself. My feet, I realized that I'd for 25 years walked around the world and I never thanked my feet. Mm-hmm. And I had broken toes and, damaged my knees, and I never thanked my legs or the knees for carrying me in spite of the damage or the fact that I abused them or didn't care about them, didn't, clip the nails all the time or whatever. But I realized that there were so many blessings that I just failed to even notice. This is why awareness is the key to change. Once you start to notice. So I started to thank myself and thank that. And then I realized it wasn't just my body. I went through all my organs and systems. Everything I could consciously think about at the time. But then it was also all the people in my life, anybody who's ever treated me badly or well, anyone I've treated badly or well. I've thanked myself for even when I treated myself badly or well. Any circumstance or event or situation in the life, I just tried to be grateful for all of it. And it was so and is so transformative. It's not just about making a list. It's about feeling the gratitude. It's allowing the gratitude to permeate every atom, every fiber, every neuron of your being, as opposed to just saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. But even just saying thank you, thank you, thank you is better than not saying it at all. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, if I say thank you, it's usually after somebody has given me something. That's, there's the magic words are please and thank you. So when do you say thank you? It's after somebody's done something. Right. Somebody opens the door, you say thank you. So guess what? You want the universe to contribute to you, say thank you first. Because then you're assuming you already have it. And what most people do is they put what they want out there somewhere instead of in here as already having it. So, and I invite people to contact me or to do a workshop or something, because we could talk about this for days. But very briefly, if you really want, if you believe in the law of attraction or want to make it work, here's what I say: you're already a creator. Everything already exists. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It's only transformed. And what we as creators do is we transform the invisible to the visible. We make the intangible tangible, and we do that through our thinking and through our feeling. And then we do it through our actions as well. It's not waving a wand, but it can be. But it's not about magic. It's about literally the laws of the universe and how we as creators make things happen. It already exists. You just can't see it yet. What we see is not having it. If we focus on not having it, we don't get it. So we have to see it and imagine it and feel it as if it already is there. And then that opens the door. So how can you best do that? To be grateful you already have it. To be thankful that it's there in your life, even if you can't see it. So I don't go, thank you for being here, but I can't see you. I just go, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then from that place of thanking, I start dropping or releasing the stuff that stands in the way, or I start doing the things that I need to do in order to get it moving. Because our subconscious mind and or the universe is billions of times smarter than we are consciously. So if you program it well, if you recondition it well, then it will do what you want it to do. And I'll use the horse, because You mentioned it earlier. I liken the subconscious mind to a horse. I've got lots of other analogies. People say computers and everything else, but think of it this way. If you get on a horse and you do not know how to ride a horse, it will either stand there and go nowhere, or it will take you where it knows to go or where it wants to go. But if you learn how to ride the horse, then you get on the horse and you direct the horse where you want it to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we do with our subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
Until we learn to control it, it does whatever it's been programmed to do. It'll give you great results or haphazard results or crappy results. You'll go, I don't know why this is happening to me, blah, blah, blah. When you learn how to work with it, and when you learn how to work with it based on these laws of the universe and principles and practices that you and I share and try and, expose people to, then they can get on it and direct it where they want. And then they start getting, because if you go, I want to be here, then you're there. You ride the horse there. And that's how it works. I like that better than a computer analogy because there's actually something about it. You don't direct the computer, it's programmed or it's reprogrammed.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, if you learn how to ride the horse, you can go wherever you want to go.
And I had no idea we were going to go down the horse track, but I want to stay with the horse for a moment because you just said work with it. And that's so key. Like horseback riding is teamwork,
yes.
Right? And a lot of horseback riding is you don't even have to use your physical muscles. You look in a direction, like you see it. You're like, I'm going to go over there. You look at the tree or the road, that the path that you want to go. You look there, and that energy that you're putting into it transfers to the horse, and the horse is going to go there. You really don't need reins and all of that if you know how to do that. So I love that example that you brought up because it's the teamwork and the seeing. And to get off the horse, but onto the baseball field, that movie, if you build it, they will come, right? It's sort of the same idea, seeing and believing. And the last thing, we're just about out of time, but the last thing I want to throw in is that a lot of people that you and I meet say, well, I'm doing it. I'm focused on the good. I'm focused on gratitude. But it ain't happening. Right. Why is it not happening in your opinion? And I know you talk about that in your book as well and every day that you're on Clubhouse. But why is it not happening? If they're saying, I'm doing all the right things, but it's not working, why not?
First off, okay, how do you know you're doing all the right things? And how do you know that you're doing everything? Because people say, I've done everything. And you go, yeah, but you try that? And they go, no. And you try that? No, I didn't. How long have you done it? Well, I did it 3 weeks. Well, maybe you need to do it long. In other words, if you wanted to be an expert tightrope walker, you'd have to do it until you could walk the tightrope because you wouldn't go up, 50 feet and get on a tightrope if you didn't know how to do it. So you have to learn how to do these things. Then it becomes easy. And even then, walking a tightrope can be perilous. So, it's worth learning to do. The reason why most people don't have what they want is they notice they don't have it instead of appreciating that they have it. It's invisible, that it's intangible, and they don't get it yet. Mm-hmm. And so they notice the gap between it. They look at their checkbook. They don't have the money in it that they want. And so they feel bad. So what are they doing? They're letting the checkbook determine how they feel. They're letting circumstances determine how they feel. It's dictating to them. And then they feel bad. They think bad. They spiral down. And then they go, but I'm trying to live abundantly. But they're letting the very thing that they look at make them feel a certain way instead of them saying, you know what, you might have a negative balance, but I see abundance and I feel wonderful. And you live from that reality, not the reality of the checkbook. That's how you start to make things happen. And one last thing, if I can, if we got time, I was very fortunate to be trained by some of the world's best horse riding trainers, wranglers in Los Angeles for a movie. And what I learned was this: they have such exquisitely trained horses that and they do all these commands because they do all these stunts and everything for the movies. So if you get on one of those horses and you don't know what you're doing, leaning the wrong way, moving the rein a certain way, confuses the horse. Mm-hmm. So you have to learn how to be a rider to ride that caliber of horse, because if you lean back, if the horse does something, if you lean forward, the horse does something. Like you say, if you look one way, if the rein falls a little bit here on its neck, if it falls a little bit that side, and if you're not balanced and everything, the horse is confused. Now you've got a really highly trained horse that's going, okay, you want me to? No, you want that? No, you want that? No, no. It doesn't know what to do. And that's what people do to their subconscious mind, because they haven't learned to train themselves to ride the horse to get it where they go. So they do this, they do that. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this. And the subconscious mind go, okay. And you don't get anywhere because it's so tied up with the former conditioning. And that truly is the subconscious mind can only say yes. It never says no to you. So you go this way, okay, I'll go that way. Then you go, but no, it's this way. And you go, no, okay. So it's you're constantly giving yourself, your own self, confusing commands or suggestions, and that ties the process up. So you need to learn how to unravel that so that you can very simply adhere to simple, basic principles and make those a firm foundation for your success. Because if you master the basics, you'll be successful, and you can and could or will have anything and everything you want in life. But you need to master the basics. And that's
I love that.
On your turn. So that's why I do what I do.
I know. And I love that we started talking about horses. I know we didn't plan on it, but it is so true, especially with the confusion that we can create. I love it. Rex, we're out of time. I know your time is precious. I want to thank you. Everybody, rexsykes.com. Don't miss out. He's got a lot of material on there. He's offering a lot of great trainings every day on Clubhouse in the morning. Join in. Open conversations, no right or wrongs, sharing, helping each other. Rex, I can't wait for your show tomorrow on the same channel. 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m.
Eastern, 5 p.m. Central.
And who's your guest tomorrow?
Ken Walls.
Oh, yes, Ken. Awesome. That'll be an interesting conversation.
That will be, because Ken has interviewed hundreds, maybe thousands of people. So,
absolutely.
Dr. Natalie, thank you so much for having me on your show and for the engaging conversation. Wonderful questions, absolutely wonderful questions and comments. I really do appreciate it. Thank you and congratulations. And I look forward to the next show. I can't wait to watch your next show.
Thank you so much, Rex. Thank you, everybody. Next week, hopefully, the Facebook Live will be better. But thank you for everybody who's been on LinkedIn, YouTube, and everywhere else. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.